For now, we've got Jose Torres joining us. He's going to present the Puerto Rico Opportunity Zone Fund. It's a multi-asset fund investing in infrastructure and operating businesses on the island of Puerto Rico, which, if you were here for the beginning of my presentation today, nearly the entire island of Puerto Rico has been designated as an opportunity zone, and there are numerous opportunities for being an OZ investor on the island of Puerto Rico. And on top of that, the local Puerto Rican government has numerous tax credits that they can apply to certain projects. So Jose, I can see you and hear you, and I see your screen. How are you doing today, Jose?
Well, thank you, Jimmy. I'm here today basically to talk about private equity, talk about opportunity zones, talk about ESG, and putting all of that together in Puerto Rico. So the disclaimer is this is not a solicitation for investments. If you're interested, please email us or contact me, and we can send you a private placement memorandum. Very brief background on myself. I basically came from the private equity and banking industry for the last 30 years. 3 years ago, I decided to move to Puerto Rico and start my own firm. We founded Monjor Capital Partners here as an alternative asset management firm in Puerto Rico, with our goal of really managing tax-efficient private equity fund, utilizing both Puerto Rico tax incentives and the opportunity zone tax incentives. As a way of background, when I first looked at Puerto Rico, that's when the legislation had just recently passed. And my focus was to try to make the opportunity zone work for operating business, particularly renewable energy. In terms of how I like for people to understand the Puerto Rico Opportunity Zone Fund, is basically start with a private equity fund, traditional private equity structure with limited partners, investing in multiple assets. The second leg of this tool here is to put an ESG strategy. Basically, our goal is to make investments that will help the residents of Puerto Rico, the environment, and the economy of Puerto Rico. We're only investing in Puerto Rico specifically so that Puerto Rican investors can take advantage of the OC tax incentives. That's basically one of the restrictions for Puerto Rican investors to get that OC tax incentive. Again, we're trying to do impact investing, and then we're overlaying the opportunity zone tax incentives for those investors that have capital gains. Our fund strategy is straightforward. Again, private equity. We're going to do a diversified portfolio, primarily in renewable energy, sustainable businesses, and infrastructure. We're actively managing our assets, so we're investing in companies that we think we can make better, that they can use my expertise and our team's expertise in growing the company and ultimately exiting. So our goal is to only invest in a handful of companies where we can take an active role to help management. Again, we talk about renewable energy and sustainable businesses, but one of the ideas is in the event that we have an exit, that we will be reinvesting that capital. And our goal is not to be an income fund, but rather a capital appreciation fund. But we are looking to make a distribution about 2027 in order for those investors who want to use some of the fund liquidity to pay their deferred gains. We're trying to, because we're one of the first private equity funds in Puerto Rico investing in opportunity zones, we want to be an example. We're partnering with best-in-class partners, DLA Piper from legal perspective, Grant Thornton from a tax and accounting perspective, and JTC Group as our fund administrator. Very briefly, our target is to get to 20 million. We're targeting a return of about 3x after a 10-year hold period. And right now, our minimum investment is 100,000. So let's talk about what the opportunity is. Basically, I'm not going to talk about the qualified opportunity zone and the benefits. Everybody has already heard a lot about that, but you haven't heard necessarily that Puerto Rico is basically all an opportunity zone. So 95+ of Puerto Rico is within an opportunity zone. So what does that bring? That brings actually an interesting playbook for a private equity fund, as we can invest in multiple businesses, which will be fairly hard to do in the mainland. But why Puerto Rico? I mean, people ask me, why are you in Puerto Rico? Besides the fact that I decided to come back after 30 years of being on the mainland. One of the reasons is Puerto Rico is a large economy. There's over 3 million people. It has about 100 billion in GDP. And also Puerto Rico is very well positioned from a strategic location between Europe, Latin America, and the US. And Puerto Rico is a US jurisdiction. So that means less risk from a currency perspective and legal perspective if you were to go into Latin America or Mexico. Also, we have a very well-educated labor force, not only bilingual, but a lot of engineers coming out of our major universities on the island. Puerto Rico has its own incentive tax codes, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. So when you look at the opportunity to put together the Puerto Rico tax incentives with the OC tax incentives, and then the need that we have in Puerto Rico for investing after the last hurricanes about 5 years ago, it's a great playbook here for me to look at opportunities to invest the capital. So very briefly, what a lot of people hear about Puerto Rico tax incentives. Generally, what they tend to do is cap the income tax rate for the corporation or the company, or if it's a pass-through, that's a tax rate that will flow through the parent company at a 4% income tax. Most of the companies that we're going to invest, if not all, will have this tax benefit because they are in the renewable energy space, they're in agriculture, they're in manufacturing, or they're on tourism. So all of those you normally will be able to qualify and apply for a 4% income tax rate. There's also tax exemptions on municipal tax and property taxes. And more importantly, there's zero withholding tax for any distributions that those companies make to their shareholders. Let's talk about what we have done thus far in our pipeline. So I'm extremely excited about our first investment. Our first investment was a company that does business as Sunbeat Energy. It's a company that was founded by a local engineer. He's been in the renewable energy business for over a decade. His original company was installing residential and commercial renewable energy deals. He was the first one to bring the Tesla battery into Puerto Rico. And after installing batteries from many other manufacturers over the last decade, he decided to design his own battery. It took him about 3 to 4 years to do that. And then he launched Sunbeat Energy 2 years ago. The focus of Sunbeat Energy is to develop, they manufacture for now in China, and then they sell and service those in Puerto Rico and throughout the Latin America and now in Florida and the US. And their whole idea is to make a better product for Puerto Rico and places that need energy storage. And what I mean by need energy storage is places where energy storage is a fundamental part of what is needed to run renewable energy on a home. In Puerto Rico, the lights go out all the time. So solar energy alone doesn't really address the issue. Just a couple of points of what was attractive to me was the idea that he took the other products that are out there and looked for a better product. One of the things that he did is taking the inverters and the batteries, making them under the same company, using the same software, so there's no issues of integration every time that one of them gets a software update, which is something that happens frequently now with renewable energy products. The other thing was installing this all as an all-in-one energy system. What does that do? That actually makes it cheaper to install. It makes it also more affordable, and ultimately, it will be the way that things will go forward because people are starting to always use as much as possible similar equipment made by the same manufacturer. This also has all of the apps where you can look at you can manage your asset from your battery from your phone, and you can also just keep monitoring it from your phone. Our second investment was actually something that I wasn't really looking to do, but after speaking at many conferences alongside them, I decided to go and visit. Basically, Fusion Farm is the first vertical indoor aquaponic farm in Puerto Rico. They basically grow organic produce inside their current facility. When I met them, I actually went there just because I was interested on the tour, did the tour, took some of the product home, and I could not believe the quality of the product. I still think it's some of the best product I've ever tasted, not only in Puerto Rico, but anywhere outside of Puerto Rico. Their vision is to go from what it is a research and development facility using 1,000 square foot of their existing facility to commercial scale. And that will require an additional investment. So that's where we came in. We thought that we would be able to help them from a financing perspective and a management perspective, go from the R&D stage to the commercial stage. Few points that are extremely interesting and attractive to me is that you use a fraction of the water that you would use in regular farming, and also a fraction of the land. Now, this might not be for everywhere in the world at this stage, but it is starting to become part of the agriculture mix, not only in Puerto Rico, but outside of Puerto Rico as well. Both on this facility and on this project, and also on Sunbeam Energy, our fund has rights to increase our exposure at very attractive valuations. Just going to finish here talking about our other two pipelines of projects. After being here in Puerto Rico for 2 years and talking about opportunity zones, everybody's really interested in real estate. Our local partner is a real estate developer, so we have decided to partner up with them to add a small mix of what we call real estate infrastructure into our fund. Right now, we're diligent 3 deals that they're currently doing. And we have basically the option to go ahead and fund some of the equity on those deals. We have a single family, we have a multifamily, and we have an ecotourism hotel. So those are things that we're looking as we expand the fund and as we look at diversifying the fund. And finally, from a pipeline perspective, our largest potential is renewable energy. Puerto Rico generates about 2.5%. The goal is to be 100%. We only need to get to 20% for this to be a huge market. We have a portfolio of 7 projects that we're currently diligencing with a local developer and a U.S. private equity, tax equity partner. So this is probably also the way that we'll round up and close our investment. And then to close up, Jimmy, here, I just have the fund terms for anybody that is interested. Again, this is a traditional private equity fund structure. We charge a 2% management fee and a 20% carried interest. What we're doing right now to try to scale our fund is offering any investor that is investing $500,000 or more a break on the fees and carried interest to 1.5% management fee and 15% carried interest. We're doing that in order to scale the fund and try to get to the next level. So that's what we have. Jimmy, my contact information, here's my cell number, and you can email at info@monjourcapitalpartners.com. And we also have our website at monjourcapital.com.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Jose. Great presentation. We've got time for 1 or 2 questions here before we move on to our next presenter. Gianni asks a question I think I can answer. Gianni asks, do PROZ funds, that's your group, need capital gains contributed from Puerto Rico related assets? And I believe the answer is no. The assets do not need to be Puerto Rico gains. They can be gains from the mainland or anywhere that are subject to U.S. capital gains tax liability. And then last question before we move on is, how many investments do you anticipate that PROZ fund will make? And what's going to be the average or typical investment amount?
Yeah, so on that, let me finish on the first one, because I think it's important for people to understand that the only real restriction on opportunity zone funds in Puerto Rico is the fact that a Puerto Rican investor has to pay capital gains in Puerto Rico. And the Puerto Rican government said, if you want to get the local opportunity zone tax incentives, your capital has to be in a fund that only invests in Puerto Rico. But it could be a US-based fund. It just has to invest all their capital into Puerto Rico. It could be a US fund that doesn't have Puerto Rican investors, and they can just invest part of their capital in Puerto Rico. Sorry, I wanted to get that because I know that's a question that is always asked, Jimmy, and it's important for anybody that's interested in doing business in Puerto Rico.
No, that was great.
The second question, in terms of number of projects, I have a slide that, well, I won't show it, that talks about the structure. Our goal is to have a minimum of 4 projects or 4 investment. And when we talk about renewable energy, that will be a portfolio of investments. At this stage, we've made 2. We're trying to close on our 3rd investment. So I think that having 4 investments is very realistic. And the idea right now is to try to not do less than $1 million to $2 million per investment, with no more than 50% concentration at the beginning on any one investment and 25% right concentration roughly if we do our 4 investments.
Fantastic. Well, Jose, we've run out of time. Thank you so much. I don't think we got to all of your questions. So if you do have any questions for Jose, you can reach out. I just posted his contact information in the Zoom chat. Jose, really appreciate your time today. Thanks for being here with us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.